Me
this
too.
not as pleasant but very necessary topic. I think Chiron is very important. I use it in my practice all the time.
Mm,
It's very significant in natal charts. So
yeah.
first of all, thank you for taking your time and for choosing such a great topic. And thank you everybody for joining. Um, and just start. Let me tell people what is Chiron and
Mm.
why is it so important.
So, sorry for a second. I thought you again. This is the foggy head. I thought you said you were going to say, but yeah, I
No,
will.
no.
I will say. I know. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's funny. I think Chiron. So to start with the basics, Chiron is an asteroid. So it's not a planet. It's an asteroid within the asteroid belt in our solar system, and it lies between Saturn and Uranus. And because of that, it has a 50-year-long kind of journey around the zodiac wheel. It was discovered in 1977. So I was thinking it's interesting, actually. I think within the next few years, it'll be 50 years since it was discovered. So I
Yes.
think when it was discovered, it was at the beginning of Taurus, like the first few degrees of Taurus. So
Yeah,
it's
I was
interesting.
born in 78, so it's just so this
Ah,
is coming to almost at the same time with my Chiron return. So,
oh yeah. Oh wow. Yeah,
yeah,
that's really interesting. Cool.
yeah.
So yeah, so it has quite I don't know the full details, but it has quite an erratic orbit. I think there's times when it can move much faster through signs, in the same way that
Yes,
we see that with Pluto sometimes, where it will move through certain signs quicker and then it'll remain in other signs for a longer period of time.
yes, that's correct. I think Pisces and Virgo is only 2 years, and then Aries and or vice versa, and then Aries and Taurus is longer, or vice versa. I'm not
Yeah, and
sure.
I think yeah, currently it's in Aries and has been for a long time,
Yeah,
and yeah, will be for another few years, I think. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so to talk a little bit about the mythology behind Chiron, I think that's going to give people the best idea, and it definitely did for me, in terms of what Chiron represents when we're looking at it in our birth chart. So Chiron is a centaur, which is a half horse, half human,
Mhm.
um, and was born and I think this is so interesting, I'll come back to this, as the son of Kronos, who we also know as Saturn.
Yep.
And in classic Greek mythology style, although this mainly used to happen with Zeus, Kronos took the form of a horse in order to, you know, shack up with a nymph, I think it was.
Yeah, she was like
And
a sea nymph.
yeah,
She was a sea nymph
yeah,
or
sea
something.
nymph. But
Yeah.
because he was in horse form at the time, when Chiron was born, that was part of the reason why he was half horse, half human, even though technically he's a demigod. Um, because of his image and how he appeared, he was rejected by Kronos, and then was taken
I think
under Apollo's wing. So
yeah, but
Apollo is the god of the sun.
sorry, I want to interrupt. So I think Saturn Kronos left before he was even
Mm,
born because something happened, and then his mother, when she saw him, she was disgusted
okay.
actually. So that's the
Yeah.
very important. She was disgusted by his looks,
Mm, mm,
and she put him in a basket on the river. That's how she left him,
okay.
and she was punished for it.
Mm,
And Zeus uh, made her a linden tree. So you know how linden trees are very, they
mm,
look very sad. Anyway,
yeah.
so a tip: if you have a strong Chiron aspect going on, or strong Chiron in your chart, you need to drink linden tea
Ah,
to help
oh, I
this.
love that. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's really interesting. I mean, it sounds like you know quite a bit about the mythology. My kind of Greek mythology is quite sparse,
No,
so
it's okay.
I suppose as I'm sharing this, there might
No,
be
no,
some
it's
details that
okay. We're together in this. So the next stage, Apollo found him. So that's the
yes,
next stage. So go
yeah,
on. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I like the Linden tea thing. That's really great. So yeah, and he was taken under Apollo's wing. So Apollo is the god of the sun, and And then Chiron was known to help train lots of kind of figures in Greek mythology. These sort of like, I think Hercules was one of them,
Yeah.
and was, you know, despite having this difficult experience being very young, which I think is a very Chiron kind of thing, isn't it? That sort of rejection and, you know, trying to deal with that. Then went on to become a well-known sort of trainer. But then in
I just want to add something. Sorry, when you mentioned Hercules, that's the whole point of wounded healer that we called Chiron, the wounded healer, because Hercules stabbed.
Yes.
He put a poisoned arrow on his, I think somewhere in his foot or somewhere, and then he was in this pain, but he couldn't die because he was a semigod, as you mentioned.
Yes.
So this was the eternal pain he had to live with. So he wanted to he wished to die, but he couldn't. So he had to learn how to live with his pain. So that's one of the stories.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was the thing that was, so Hercules being trained by Chiron then was the one that shot him with an arrow.
Yeah.
And one thing I think that's really interesting is that Chiron was then eventually was allowed to, I think he went to, I've heard different stories, some say Zeus and some say Hades, where he was like, please allow me to pass on to, you know, the other side, and was added to the Sagittarius constellation, which I think is really interesting, especially with us being in Sagittarius season at the moment. Yes. And I was thinking about the image of the centaur, and I do wonder how much of that Chiron mythology is part of it, because I did a post the other day about how I see the theme of redemption is a real key part of Sagittarius, but you can also see that with Chiron as well. It's about those themes of, you know, going through a difficult experience in your life, in your past, and how you can learn and grow from that, and use that knowledge to help yourself and also to help others as well.
Absolutely. I love the correlation that you mentioned with Sagittarius. It's about wisdom and knowing and teaching. You know, with Sagittarius is all about, you know, as ruled by Jupiter, it's about, you know, wisdom and just teaching. And so Chiron is about, first of all, about abandonment, which is a very heavy word, but it is what it is, like physical absence of parents. It can be that, or emotional or physical absence, or some kind of abandonment of that stuff. And then on the other side, you, as we mentioned, you cannot heal yourself. The only way you can heal is by helping others heal. So think about that. That's what I find interesting in
definitely. And I think I guess part of the reason I was so drawn towards Chiron when I first learned about it is because, one, when I looked in my own chart and saw my own story, which I'll share in a second, I was so kind of, it just all made a lot of sense. And I think that because of my psychology background, working in psychology, I think often in therapy, what we're trying to get to the root of is often that Chiron kind of wound, because it's almost something that we have to approach from a place of acceptance, because it's not like there's anything, it's not like there's a way we can fix it or take it away. It has happened, that experience has happened, but there's ways we can learn and adapt from it.
Yeah.
And I think it's so interesting. Oh, sorry.
No, I want you to tell your story, and then I have a story of my mom, which is Chiron related, very strong story, so we can share it. I'm going to share it later. I want to hear you first.
Before I tell my story, I think it's so interesting that in the mythology of Chiron, Chiron came from Saturn. So if you're thinking about that, born off Saturn, so born into, like you say, abandonment, limitations, restrictions, but then was raised by Apollo. So it's almost like this, with the sun, I often think about the life journey and the sense of identity. So it's almost like being able to bring those two together, the Saturn and the sun. I think it was, I like that kind of element of it.
I'm thinking, you know, how sometimes, you know, we see our mentors, which Apollo was to him, our teachers, and as a father figures, they can be also authority, right? So that's that relation. I can absolutely relate to that. You know, you have a favorite teacher, right? Your favorite teacher is somebody you also find comfort in, right? Just like at home with your parents.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So yeah, so for my my Chiron story, and I guess just to say, like you mentioned at the beginning, Jasmine, I think it's worth saying that when we're talking about Chiron, so say if you're reading somebody's chart and you're speaking about Chiron, these are very sensitive topics, and I think they should be treated as such. It could be very easy to look at someone's Chiron and be like, oh, wow, okay, I can see a lot going on there. But I think it's so important that we ask for permission and that we tread carefully, because it could bring up something that, you know, that person maybe isn't quite yet ready to hear, or maybe doesn't quite want to discuss.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like that you mentioned that. In my practice as well, I always, when I see something, I said, there's a sensitive topic. If you want to talk about it or not, and they usually say yes or no. And then I don't go deep. I just, if they don't want to open up, the client, then I just stop. But, I start like with, what's your relationship with your mom? And then when I see, then I kind of, that's it, right? So you can see that it's there, right?
Definitely.
It's hard. It's very hard. These are the most, you as a psychologist can for sure attest to this. This is one of the hardest aspects. I think with Pluto, along with Pluto, Chiron and Pluto together are the hardest aspect. I with Saturn, it's hard, but you kind of, I don't know, it goes away with time. These things are deeply rooted forever, I feel like, unless we work on them on a deeper psychological level, right?
And like I said, I think it's it's like, if the antidote to Saturn, I think, is patience and understanding that things take time, and and often effort. Whereas I think with Chiron, it is about trying to find that place of acceptance where we can learn to live with this wound. It's not something that you can remove and get rid of, but something that it's almost acknowledging that it's part of us, and that it's a strength. The reason that Chiron was such a good healer after being shot with the poison arrow is because he was in constant pain, and so he was then able to help others because he had such a deep empathy. And I think that's a good key word for Chiron as well, is empathy, because we can, whatever it is, the wound that we have, we can see it in others, and we can attest and support people in a way that maybe they might not, other people might not be able to do as well.
Yeah, lovely. You said it lovely. Very nice.
So as for my Chiron story, I guess I thought it would be helpful to share this as an example, because it was when I learned about Chiron, I looked at my own chart. I was like, oh my god, this makes so much sense. So I have Chiron in Leo, in my third house. Now, some of the things you could say about Chiron in Leo is that I would almost call it like the wound of talent, or the wound of appearances. And I definitely relate to this. There's a sense of sometimes not feeling seen, not being acknowledged sometimes as well, or feeling like you have to try really hard. But like, no matter how hard you try, it's hard to get to that place of acknowledgement from others. Now, because it's in my third house, one of the things you could say is that I could have a wound, or some kind of, I guess another word could be trauma, but like something around those topics in terms of siblings. That's kind of one of the things that's to do with the third house. Now, my brother has a disability. He has cerebral palsy, and so when I was growing up and it was just the two of us, and this is something that's taken me a while to sort of come to terms with, I guess, is that I did really struggle to get attention because he had more needs than I did. He had more he needed more care, and so that's just one example, I guess, of like that Leo third house kind of axis. It's like feelings of not being seen linked to a wounded brother. And what's really fascinating is
you're gonna make me cry.
Yeah.
I feel these Chiron stories. I really feel them. I think because they're. Okay, go on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. And this is the thing, and this is why
yeah.
these are the things that often, I would say, with Chiron, they are things that are often from when we're very young. And I think that's why they can be so emotive as well, because it taps into that kind of feeling of being a child and being kind of struggling to adapt to these difficult conditions. What's really interesting is that I've looked at my brother's chart, and I've actually seen this in a couple of charts now, although I imagine this doesn't always track. He has Chiron in the first house, so literally he has a physical disability. Yeah. And I'll get back to this for me in a second, but for him, what's really interesting is that, you know, his disability is a huge part of his identity, but he has gone on to support other people with disabilities. So there's that wounded healer idea. So he, in the UK, we have something called MenCap, which support people with disabilities. And he does he's on the interview panels, to bring new kind of people in, new support workers, and yeah, I think he's a really good example of like using his experience of having a disability, and then being able to use that knowledge to support other people with disabilities too, which is classic kind of Chiron wounded healer.
I love that. He was able to do it. I love it. I also find that aspects are very important. If you have a strong hard aspects with the sun or a moon, that's with parents issues, or, you know, it can be aspects are very important. If you have conjunctions with something, that can emphasize the wound even more.
Yeah, and I will get to that actually, because so I guess another thing to mention with the third house is often it can be about school and education. Or particularly the school that you have to go to. You know, the ninth house is like the higher education that we seek out ourselves, but the third house is the education
early education. Your, you know, like your elementary school and yeah.
And so for me, again, Chiron in the third house, I really struggled at school, and I had a diagnosis of ADHD when I was younger, which again, it's so interesting. Like Chiron in Leo, attention deficit. Like I feel like that's a really interesting kind of
and confidence. It's also about confidence, and you don't have the attention you need. You like confidence. It's connected, right?
And so I found kind of going to school very difficult. But what's interesting now is I'm now in my role as a psychologist working with children who are at school. And often the issues that come up are around anxiety and confidence. And so I feel like I'm applying some of what I've learned from my own experiences to the situation with the children that I'm working with.
So you found a way to accept and help others with I love that. I wish you had an opportunity to have those kids' charts in front of you so you can help them even deeper.
Well, yeah,
that would be even.
What's so interesting about Chiron as well is like I had been in therapy for a few years, and a lot of what I have just told you now, obviously I'm kind of skipping over a lot of details, I guess, but that was stuff that took me years in therapy to understand. And then I looked at Chiron and was just like, oh, like
right away.
This years ago. I wish I'd known this before, but sometimes I think, even though, and this is why I think it's important for us to be careful as astrologers,
absolutely,
is that if someone just tells you that, oh, you had issues with this, and this, that's what your Chiron is telling me, that's not going to integrate as much as like having therapy and having the time to sort of talk about these things. There's a process of integration where you kind of come to terms with whatever that wound is. The one more thing to mention about my story as well is that I have Chiron conjunct Mars in Leo, and so there was a lot of issues for me when I was growing up, again in school in particular, around like my identity in terms of masculinity. So I often didn't feel that comfortable in terms of that kind of masculine identity. And, you know, and this was in like, I mean, I'm sure it was definitely worse beforehand, but this is like late 90s, early noughties. And so it was a bit difficult to not have that.
It's your story.
Yeah.
Remember, it's your story. You were going through that. It doesn't matter. It's important. And uh, accepting your feelings and emotions at that time. I think it's also very important not to dismiss other people's emotions. It doesn't matter. For somebody, this is tragical. For somebody, it's not. We all have different things. So it's very important not to dismiss other people's feelings and emotions or their life stories. I'm always careful about, it's very important. Oh, don't worry, I happened to me, I don't care. It's not relatable. These things are really very personal, and yeah.
Yeah, regardless of the context, I
Yeah.
think you're right. It's like important to acknowledge that that's that person's experience, definitely.
Right. So you did feel this when you were. It doesn't matter. Was it a harder period for somebody else before or something? This was your story, and it felt hard, and you had to deal with it. So, acknowledging that, I really hope that you find the perfect way for you to help others, because and I think you're on a great path with astrology and everything that you do, to to heal somehow. I really hope.
Yeah.
I really
Thank
hope.
you. No, I appreciate that. But anyway, so that's my kind of Chiron story, which I thought it might be helpful to share for people to give a sense of what you're kind of looking at with Chiron. You said that you had an interesting story as well.
My mom. Yeah, my mom's story. So my mom passed away when she was in her Chiron return. She was 50, 51, not even. And she had her moon conjunct Chiron in the fourth house. So I don't even have to tell you that my grandmother, there was, issues with her relationship with her grandmother. My grandmother was, she was a distant person. She wasn't very nurturing, and my mom was trying to buy her love her whole life, trying to get attention from her mom. It was not attention, love and care. And she just couldn't accept that her mom doesn't love her or care for her that she wants. And then I think at Chiron return, I feel that if somehow you don't accept it, by the time the Chiron return comes, it gets better of you, I would say. So my mom was very loved by so many people. Like at her funeral, there was like 400 people. Like it was, but she could never, it's her mother's love that she was always looking for. And as growing up with that energy and understanding, when I saw my mother's child with Chiron, it just all made sense to me, and it's something eternal. And I realized you really can't help the person. They need to find the way to accept it for themselves. As much as you see them struggle and you really want to reach out and just to be there for them, I guess it's the only thing you can do. Or but it has to come from within. I was looking at my mom, and it never came within. She was just always wanting that, no matter what. So I hope we can all learn from from people who couldn't accept the situation, because acceptance is the hardest part, I think. Right? You get over patience, and you said this is all external kind of things. This is deep, psychological, and if you repress it, it comes to haunt you. No repressing emotions, that's also dangerous, right?
Definitely, yeah. And I think I see it so often in my work as a psychologist, is that I think, and also from my own experience with therapy as well, you go in and you're like, I've noticed this part of me and I want to get rid of it. I want to fix it. I want to try it, and I think with Chiron, I would argue with astrology in general, there's kind of that stoic philosophy underneath it, but there's a sense of just saying, well, it's not about trying to get rid of it. And the more you try and get rid of it, I think the more it'll bite back. And it's about how do we learn to live with that and see, and some of what we've shared today, I guess, is like seeing the beauty in it as well, because I think it can give us a deep empathy for others when we can kind of face it and integrate it.
I think with this conversation you gave me, because my brain works that way, you gave me now an idea how I can work on my own stuff. I think we need to learn more about the topic. So I'm thinking, first of all, you need to learn, if you realize what it is, learn all about it so you can help others. Don't deny it, don't dismiss it, and try to understand it. Um, I don't have a hard aspects to my Chiron. I don't have them, but I still have Chiron, right? So although it doesn't make a hard aspect, it's still there. It's in Taurus in my eighth house, and I have been struggling with self-worth and self-value my whole life. Am I worth? What am I? Is this worth? Am I valuable? I just never feel that anything I'm doing, it's worth enough. Putting price on my products or my services. I can't even. I just everything. I just like I have really issues. I just have issues. Like I don't know. I really. Um, Also, one thing, like, although my logical brain tells me it doesn't matter and it's superficial, I still long for some material things in my life, which is ridiculous. Like logically, it doesn't matter, but something inside me, I want a big house. I want, this something that is, I don't know, like it's ridiculous. See, it makes me cry because I know it's ridiculous, but it's there. So now I'm thinking I need to learn more about from other people what is valuable, how they do it, so I can help maybe put value to others, because I'm trying with all these lives and stuff. I want to put the value, give others the value, so I can maybe learn something. It's work in progress, right? It's a challenge, guys.
And
right?
I think it's like once you know what it is, it's so helpful to just be aware of it, because like even I noticed a few years ago that like, and again, third house is all about communication. It can be about written communication. I have a big thing about my handwriting and writing things down. And I realized I was often saying to people like, oh, my handwriting's terrible. I'm really sorry. Oh my God, my handwriting. Oh, you probably can't read my handwriting. And people are like, and again, it's that thing about your subjective experience, because people will say, oh, your handwriting's fine. What are you talking about? But to me, there is a wound there of like, when I was younger, feeling like my communication wasn't good enough, or my written communication wasn't good enough. So once we're able to recognize those things, we're then able to be like, okay, that's Chiron, that's where that's coming from. And to almost even just doing that and noticing, I think can be really helpful.
I've also struggled with my sexuality, to be honest. Like I never felt sexy. I don't, it's a different, it's very subjective, thing for somebody, but I just never feel that, like a femme fatale. I was even like, anyway, maybe too intimate for this story, but I'm saying it's part of my Chiron in being sensual, having all this, showing my, I never had like showing my cleavage, like at the dress, I always hiding everything. It's just, I'm just thinking about it, Steven. It's in that sense,
So
and
this is the thing, it's when we talk about it, and I think for both of us in this live, like it brings up feelings, doesn't it? And you're like, oh my God, it's hard because it is hard to talk about these things.
It's a very personal. This is the most personal thing from everything. I know it's only a little asteroid, but guys, it's so powerful. I don't know how this works. I don't know. Nobody knows. Like none of us astrologers know why this works, but it works for some reason. These energies, this everything works.
It's funny because I'm learning Hellenistic, like traditional astrology. So the asteroids don't come into it. But I just from my own what I've shared today, I really resonate with Chiron in particular. I haven't done much work with the other asteroids, but that
you can combine work. I'm like more of a modern approach, but I still use annual perfections when I look, and I still use some traditional. I always look both rulerships, just because So it doesn't matter. We can combine knowledge. We don't have to stick to one particular. Everything that resonates with us, we can use and learn and use in our practice. So I feel that that it's great. As above, so below. Anna, yes, that's right. Exactly. Somebody's sending us love. Thank you. Thank you, guys. So this is hard topic.
I was just thinking, just to sort of help, the people who might be watching. I wondered if it might be helpful to go through each sign.
Yes, please go. We have at least half an hour. Please go. Yes.
I
love that.
Yeah, and obviously, if anybody in the comments wants to share any of their own stories, or if you'd like, I mean, again, I know this is a very sensitive topic, but
Yeah.
you know, we'd be happy to sort of interpret on a kind of a surface level, I guess. Yeah. Um, so yeah, so let's go through the signs and think about it. So if Chiron's in a certain sign in your birth chart, what might that mean? And yeah, me and Jasmine, we can sort of talk about things and as we go through each one. So Chiron in Aries, that's where Chiron is at the moment, and I would say this is like the wound of the self, assertiveness. It might mean that you know, when you were younger, for whatever reason, it was very difficult to assert yourself, very difficult to be, and it sounds cheesy, but almost like be who you truly are.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
to be an individual, I almost get this idea of like your individuality is taken away from you.
And physical is, many people have issues, as you mentioned your brother, but just even if they don't have disabilities, they feel that they don't look good.
Mm.
They feel that something is wrong with their body. Just a feeling. It doesn't have to be, but
Yeah, and that's, yeah, I guess that's the thing. And I think you know, I mentioned before about my brother having a disability, but what's interesting is about him is that it's conjunct his ascendant, so it's very, very much in terms of his
prominent. Yeah. Yeah.
appearance and his body. But yeah, sometimes it might be, yeah, just a feeling that you have, which I think is a really important point you've made.
Yeah.
Um,
Aries wants to be first,
mm,
right? It's very competitive. So feeling that, oh, I can't win. You know,
mm,
feeling I can never win anything. You know that, having being the second place all the time. So that feeling
mm.
of a silver medalist. I
And
think that's very,
And
yeah.
what's really interesting is that then this can show up in different ways. And I would definitely say that you've got to look at the whole birth chart and get a sense of how, you know, how someone is on the whole, because um, I think that how someone reacts to the wound is going to be different. So, for example, say you've got Chiron in Aries and you never feel like you're first place, you always feel like you're losing. That might mean that you then strive more than ever and you feel like you've got to prove yourself. But it could mean that you just give up and you go, well, I'm just not even going to try because I know that I'm going to lose. And I think that there's a lot of nuance in how people will respond to that wound in particular.
A kind heart healing, she says, I know someone with Chiron in the first house that was physically abused. Oh, she means Aries, that was physically abused. Well,
So
that,
yeah, yeah, and I guess that's another thing. You've got kind of themes of aggression, and yeah, and I guess sort of the shadow side of Aries can be violent. So yeah, that's a really good point.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And somebody above as well, Medicine of the Stars, said having Chiron in the 12th house, saying that they hide their wounds, which is a really good point. I suppose it could be either that you're trying to hide it yourself or even hiding it from yourself. I could imagine that it would. Chiron's quite hard to uncover. We've spoken a lot today about therapy and, you know, and kind of needing that time and needing to kind of face the difficulty in order to understand it better. So I can imagine in the 12th house that must be even harder to do because the 12th house often represents things that are unseen to us. That must be.
So Sharon says, I have Chiron in my first house. What does that mean? So first house and Aries are similar energies. So when we talk about Aries, think about first house, Taurus second. So you can follow that way.
Yeah. So if you have Chiron in the first house, similar to what we were just saying, it could mean that there is a sort of challenges or you know, trauma maybe in the past about the sense of identity, about being able to express who you really are. It could mean that the first house is also the body, so it could be that you, like we've said before, could have some kind of physical disability or like ongoing illness, or it could even just be the feeling that you have that as well. Like we said, it doesn't have to be, you know, it could be. Yeah.
It could be also that one of the parents abandoned you physically, just because then you have you don't have a sense of identity.
Yeah.
You're kind of lost in that sense. Who am I if I don't know where I come from? It's also kind of in the fourth house, but it can be in the first house as well. I noticed.
Yeah, definitely. So we touched on Taurus a little bit before.
Yep.
So Taurus second house, from what you said, that's kind of, I would say that's like the wound of self-worth. Taurus is all about oh wait, where is it? Don't know if you can still hear me.
You're breaking up. It's okay.
Oh,
You're
sorry.
breaking up.
Am I
You're
back?
fine.
Am I back now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good, good. So yeah, Taurus, I would say it's like the wound of self-worth. So that could be, you know, because Taurus is about, I would say like resources. It's about kind of material possessions, but it can
I'm
also
going to
be,
add something,
yeah, go.
Tom. I'm going to add something because I have my Chiron in Taurus in the 8th house.
Mhm.
I have lost all the inheritance, not by my fault, but my parents. They were disinherited from both sides. So me and my brother are totally.
Oh God,
It's just funny.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, it's not funny, but it's kind of it shows that.
yeah.
Anyway, there's the wound that there's like not, there's no inheritance.
Yes, yeah. Which that's, I think you sometimes you do have to laugh. I think because you look at things in astrology and you're like, well, there it is. It's like plain as day. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Um,
just wanted to mention that.
So yeah, you can probably speak to this better than I can, but yeah, I would say with in Taurus, there's a theme around loss, feeling like you're, yeah, there's the kind of the
Tangible things. I know, guys. I
tangible
know it's
things. Yeah,
superficial, but
yeah,
it's all about tangible things.
mhm,
Like loss of tangible
yeah,
things, or not, or I will tell you another story. I mean, this is my Taurus story. Like, I never, when somebody gives you a secondhand thing, or like
mm,
I was getting clothes from my cousin.
mm,
They were good clothes, but it was secondhand. It was never new. So not getting new
mm,
material things was also thinking from when I was growing up. I really felt that I'm not worth to have new things,
yeah,
the best things.
mm,
Getting,
mm,
and then if somebody would give me like a perfume that is not original, like a false oh, I even now when I
yeah,
see it,
mm,
it's so stupid, but it triggers that I'm not worth to have the best.
yes, yeah, yeah. Mm.
That's, anyway,
And
just
again,
to think.
and similar to Aries, I think how each person would respond to that is different because someone might respond to that, you know, that feeling of not being worthy enough to,
Yeah.
because then they might kind of seek that out and be like, I must have all of the best things because that's the only way I'm going to feel worthy. Or they could feel like, well, there's no, you know, kind of giving up and almost being like, well, you know, I guess I'll just never have nice things. I'll never have the things that I want.
I'm still working on it. I don't know what the
Yeah.
solution is. I'm still working on it, to be honest. It's work in
Mm,
progress still for me. I
mm,
don't know.
mm.
I,
Yeah.
I rationally I understand everything. Emotionally, it's hard.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And this is the thing, I suppose, with Chiron, it's like it's a lifelong lesson. It's not
Yes.
something that you'll reach 50 and you have your Chiron return. You'll be like, oh, it's all fine now. I don't have that problem anymore. I think it'll come in ebbs and flows, and sometimes the way to look at that is if there's any aspects to your natal Chiron that might kind of flare things up at certain periods of your life. And yeah,
It's interesting. Jupiter is right now on my Chiron, and I'm thinking it's just even emphasizing this feeling.
the bigger, bigger feeling. Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway,
But
okay, go on.
interesting though, because there might be themes of seeking out teachers, and kind of the two together. I can imagine there could be a lot to learn. I think at this time.
I'm gonna. I'm so inspired by our talk today that I'm gonna look more into what is worth and value in general, and I'm gonna
Mm,
explore the material world, the not material. I'm gonna actually dive into this and see what people are struggling with.
yeah,
I want to talk to people about that and try to help them.
yeah,
You inspired me so much today
mm,
because I've been trying to deal with it on my own, which is not the way to do it.
yeah. I think, and that's a really important lesson as well. I think with Chiron, it's not something you can really do on your own. And I think in a strange way, in the myth of Chiron, the way that he doesn't heal himself because he can't heal himself, but the way that he learns to live with the wound is by healing others. And I think that's often the message of if you're able to help others who are in a similar situation to you, then that, you know, is
And
incredibly helpful.
this is maybe ridiculous, example, but maybe it's not. I'm thinking about Britney Spears. She has Chiron in Taurus in the eighth house,
Okay.
and she had these material things, but I think with her father and all this thing that's happening, I think she's also still struggling with her worth, even now. I have my Chiron conjunct my North Node, and I feel I have healed not all, but quite some part of the wound. Well, good.
Great.
That's good.
And I can imagine being the North Node as well, even more so. That's kind of that Chiron. It's almost like a really important
mission. It's like a mission.
It's a mission,
a mission.
yeah. Like, you know, kind of becoming the wounded healer is like a big part of your like life, kind of where you're heading. Yeah.
I love it.
And someone else said Chiron in Aries in the 12th house. So yeah, so similar to what we said before, I think.
I feel that if you have Chiron in the 12th or 6th house, or even 8th, like me, maybe it's a good place for healers or for therapists. Or I should have studied psychology. I wanted to, but then I didn't. And you know, it's maybe a way to maybe I'm using astrology, you know, that as a sense. So those are placements when you can actually heal others, like be a healer.
Definitely. Yeah. So yes, then we've got Chiron in Gemini. So this is the wound of communication, how we use our words. You know, I can say, you know, I have it in my third house. So similar kind of themes, like I said before, struggling with written communication. And again, I suppose with Chiron, the theme I've noticed that no matter where it is there's the theme of not being good enough in that area. So, you know, in Aries, it's not being good enough at, you know, expressing who you are or not being first. And then in Taurus, it's not being good enough to have these possessions or having, you know, kind of material goods. And then in Gemini, it's like not being good enough to, you know, talk to others in a way that makes sense, or in a written way, or having those conversations,
or wound of not being heard.
Yes.
You know, you talk and nobody, like, oh, what do you have to say? Oh, shut up. You know, I think that's the worst thing, you know. Who are you to say something? Your opinion doesn't matter in that sense. And I mean, for you, I feel that for you with Leo combination in third house, it's even more emphasized. That, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, I didn't mention before, so I said about my brother with it being in the first house, but he has Gemini in the first house, same as me, and so part of his disability is he struggles with speech. So again, you know, there's that sense of not being able to. I think with Chiron and Gemini, it's almost like I feel like I can't say what I need to say. The words don't come out right, and therefore people don't hear what I'm actually trying to say to others.
I can imagine it's very hard, especially for Gemini risings and Gemini's. Gemini is just
yeah, definitely very frustrating. So yeah, and then we have sorry, I've just got some notes here and they keep going away. So then we have Chiron in Cancer, which is I would say this is like the wound of family and the home. Oh, you've paused again. Are you still there?
Okay, you're back.
Oh, good. Sorry.
I feel that the fourth house it's about emotional or physical abandonment by parents, one or the other.
Yeah, and I think that there's something about never quite feeling like you've got a home, you've got like that safe base.
Yes.
I would say that you feel very unrooted, and that, you know, there may have been issues when you were younger with like either a very disrupted home. I could almost even imagine someone who might be adopted or was in care because of, you know, kind of difficulties at home. Those are the kind of themes that come up.
Yeah, I agree. It's about home, your ancestry, where you come from, not having a sense of not belonging.
Yeah.
So that's hard, right? So
yeah, definitely. Yeah. And just hard. Apologies for the connection, because I know someone has mentioned in the comments that the connection's bad. I'm gonna blame it on Mercury squaring Neptune today, and
the message is out there, Tom. Don't worry, the message is good. So
okay, good. Then Chiron in yeah, so then it's
Leo.
yeah, so Leo, so Chiron in Leo, which I know we've mentioned a bit about already. Something I really learned a lot about earlier this year when we had the Venus retrograde in Leo. And I think for me in particular, because it was activating my Chiron, I think I realized that Chiron in Leo, from my personal experience anyway, there was a lot about shame, because shame is like the opposite of empowerment in a way. It's like
That's a good
the part of you.
word for Chiron.
Yeah.
That's a good word for Chiron.
Just in
shame.
general, yeah.
General. Yeah. Yeah,
The
I
feelings
can
of
feel
shame that you have around, yeah, that's a good point actually, because it might be shame around the home, or like around your upbringing, shame around how I communicate with others. Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe that's a good word for Chiron in general. So yeah, so with it in Leo or in the fifth house, there's definitely topics about struggling to be seen and be heard because of how we show up in the world, and how whether people actually see us how we want to be seen, I think is in a part of that.
It's similar with Aries in that sense that you're you're not seen, like or you're at a second place, or you're just somewhere, in the shadows, just invisible.
Yes.
I think that's the good word for this. If when you come to a party and your Leo wants to be and then the Chiron in the fifth or in Leo is like a person in the corner, nobody sees them in the party. That's what it is. That's what I think.
Yeah, and I would say maybe the thing that makes Leo different from Aries is that with Leo, it's almost like wanting to be recognized for your talents, for your kind of thing that makes you kind of unique, or I don't know,
different from others, in that creative special way, but invisibility, I think that's the hurtful part, not being seen, and then
and I wonder if that's a theme for the fire signs in general, because I wonder if it's like almost like the fire is like dampened down and that light isn't as bright.
Yeah, they want to be out there, right? The fire is out there, like for water is more than emotional, emotional security and more inward stuff. This is out there. They want to be in the world, seen, recognized. Sagittarius wants to, they are teaching, and nobody wants to listen to them. They're hurtful, in that sense, right? They're going around the world and teach, and nobody wants to hear their stories. Imagine you don't want to hear that's hurtful, right? Definitely. Anyway, we'll go to the Sagittarius, but I think that's the theme of fire. You're right.
Yeah. And so then we've got Chiron. So if you have Chiron in Virgo, and my partner has Chiron in Virgo, and the biggest theme I've noticed is like around perfectionism. So it would be like the wound of everything needs to be perfect, but it never feels good enough. It's always, that stuff. I'm really noticing a lot of themes as we're sort of talking about each one, but I think Virgo is of service to others, and supports through practical means.
I will tell you, maybe I'm a Virgo rising, and I want to be seen as a reliable person. So if you think of me as not reliable, or somebody who, oh my God, that's like really, so something maybe in that sense, oh, you're not reliable, we can't count on you. I think that's maybe a Chiron wound as well in Virgo.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's that no matter how hard, and this is maybe a sixth house topic as well, but like, it's like no matter how hard you work or how hard you try, it's like, it never feels like you're able to do enough for other people. It's specifically about doing enough for other people. And I think for my partner, she's had to recognize that in herself, because it's like a bottomless pit. She's like doing stuff for others, but she's like never getting the satisfaction of like feeling as though people are like recognizing her and giving her the recognition of saying, like, oh, thank you for helping me with this thing, because that either it never happens, or when it does, she can't hear it.
I know. People taking her for granted.
Yes.
Definitely.
That's
the wound. That's the one. And I'm thinking, my first teacher, Steve Jobs, he always says, we if we do the best we can, 99.9%, that's good enough. Because if we did 100%, we would be angels with wings.
Yes. Yeah. That's a good Virgo lesson, I think.
So
Yeah.
realizing that it's sometimes, one of the things. Yeah, it's not an easy. None of them are easy, but I'm thinking because I have Virgo placement, I can rely on that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just thinking of the time as well. Should we?
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
So
okay, we have time. Don't worry.
we have time. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So Chiron in Libra. This is often about relationships to others, and I was thinking about this earlier because I was looking at a chart with Chiron in Libra, and I think that there are themes around kind of what's the word? Feeling like you constantly need to rely on other people. Like there's not that much in terms of your self-identity, because it's kind of the opposite of
It's
Aries
like,
in a way where
I can't do it on my
yes,
own.
I
Like I think
have to rely
really,
on other people.
yes, I can't do it on my own. Oh, I can't. I have to. Somebody else needs to help me. I'm just, I'm not good enough in that sense that um, I won't be able to make it on my own. I'm not good enough in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then kind of relying maybe too much on other people, but then losing your sense of self in the process, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's also identity crisis a little bit, on
Yes.
the other and
How am I without the people in my life? Yeah,
yes.
definitely.
Yeah, if you don't have that relations, I think people with Chiron in Libra, if they're not in a relationships, they're hurting. That's like, oh my God, nobody wants to be with me. Nobody's in a relationship with me. Oh my God, they need to be in relationship to feel.
And you can really see as we're talking about this, Chiron, as it goes through the signs, it's really triggering those shadow sides of each of the signs, isn't it? It's like the parts that the sort of the most challenging parts of that sign kind of come to the surface.
That's a good one. So where you have Chiron at that sign, look at the shadow side of that sign, and that's how I learn about it. That's what I'm going to do for sure.
Yeah.
And then,
Definitely.
yeah, that's a good one.
Okay. So yeah, Chiron in Scorpio, or in the 8th house, which I guess we've spoken about a little bit. I would say there's themes about control, feeling like like struggling to feel in control of certain situations or relationships.
Feeling powerless. This is
The
so this is the house when you feel control and power. And if you have that, feel like you have not control in your life, it's a sense of also, it's also about money. So, and I have it in 8th house, so it's like feeling like I don't have control, like losing inheritance wasn't my control, right? So think about, it can also be about that, just not having control and power, feeling that others have power over you, or external situations or something.
I love that.
Katrina said Chiron in Libra, partnering can bring pain. That's also true. Yeah.
Yes.
Wrong partnerships. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's such a good point. And then so we spoke a little bit about Chiron in Sagittarius as well, or in the 9th house. This is definitely around kind of beliefs, and in terms of, I guess like you say, sort of I would say there's doubt and shame around your own beliefs or your own kind of education as well.
It can also be like you want to have a higher education, but you can't. Something is stopping you. You were never able to get it.
Yeah.
To be recognized that way. That can be a thing, right? Or travel. You want to travel, but you couldn't because of your environment situation that you grew up with. You couldn't afford it, or something happened. You couldn't travel and explore the world.
Or it could be that you've had difficult experiences with teachers within, or with traveling abroad, things like that as well. Yeah.
Or your beliefs. You have some beliefs, and then they're dismissed.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can imagine that for maybe someone with Chiron and Sagittarius, maybe as they're growing up, a lot of their beliefs are dismissed by others, and people might be like, "Oh no, that's wrong. You have to believe what I believe," and then that causes them to doubt their own beliefs in the future and to disentangle their own beliefs from others.
I'm thinking about astrologer,
Mm.
For example, you believe in astrology, you do astrology, you're an astrologer, and then you have Chiron in Sagittarius or in the ninth house, and somebody says, oh, astrology is rubbish. And then you kind of, just an example, you kind of start doubting, and, anyway.
Yeah. I know someone with Chiron in Sagittarius, and yeah, they were saying when they were growing up, they had a particularly difficult experience with, I think it was, like family members who would often say quite kind of contradictory things about what they believed, and it made it really hard for them to get a sense of like what's true and what isn't true.
Yeah,
And
the
even
truth.
now,
That's what Sagittarius.
truth. Yeah. And so what, even now, if they're in a situation where they'll say a fact, or they'll say, oh yeah, this is something that's happened, and someone will go, oh no, that's not true, it's really triggering from them. They find it really hard to hear, because they're like, it brings up all those feelings of like being told that they're wrong and that what they believe isn't right. Yeah.
That's a good, I know. Hard one.
So that's a really key one to watch out for. And that taps in, I guess, with the ninth house as well, because of, as we're learning things in higher education, we're often, challenging our own kind of thoughts and beliefs, aren't we?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, that's the whole point. Yeah.
Yeah.
As much as you, the more you learn, the less you know. Socrates said it. I know that I know that I don't know nothing. What was he saying? I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Something like that. Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
So Chiron in Capricorn, and also some of the 10th house topics. There's definitely themes around recognition, not similar in, there's definitely similarities between the respect. Yeah.
Because Capricorn is all about respect. They demand it, that sense, right? So not being respectable in the society, because they're very formal society. You remember, they go, so not being, for example, not being a part of society, or even at work. If you wanna be at the top, the CEO, and then you can't, right?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I think that not being respectable in your field of expertise, at your workplace, in the world.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's such a good point. And that I'm seeing similarities between the different different elements. Where was themes. There's themes in the earth signs around no matter how hard I sort of try and work, no matter how hard I work, I don't get the respect or the recognition or the material sort of gain that I'm looking for.
Or it could be like Sisyphus. He was pushing the rock, and then again.
Yeah. That's such a good image, actually, for Chiron in any of the earth signs. Just like constant hard work, but never getting the sort of recognition for it. Yeah. Of feeling like you don't, because I suppose that's the other thing as well, is it's like that sometimes, even when you are met with the reality of someone saying someone could respect you, but you might not feel like people respect you.
Did you notice that this is all about outside? This is all about getting recognition and notice from outside world to feel. So it's not within. That's the thing. This is all issues that we have. How outside world see, what do we expect from the outside world? Right?
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I would say something I've really noticed with Chiron is that it's often a point where our inner world and our inner understanding of what the world is doesn't match up with the external world, and often that's because of experiences we've had when we're younger. And this is like classic sort of therapy and psychology sort of speak as well, where it's like how do you find that middle ground where you can tell, okay, I might have you have Chiron and Capricorn, you might be like, nobody ever respects me, no matter what I do, nobody ever respects me. And it's about challenging that and being like, well, actually, maybe people do respect you, but you're so used to, from maybe when you were younger or certain experiences you've had of not feeling respected, that you almost come to expect it in every situation that you come into.
I have so many epiphanies talking to you, Tom, and this is crazy. I'm thinking about, if I notice how other people, how are they valuable, I'm thinking, then I can maybe see a value in myself. I have to. So this is the same with the Capricorn. If they respect others as they, maybe expect for others to respect them, maybe that's the healing path.
Yes. Yeah, that's such a good point. I think, yeah, and maybe that's a simple way we can do that, is just think, like,
Yeah, this is simple, but this is me, Gemini. Geminis need to talk simple. That's what I learned.
no, but I really like
but no,
that,
but
because I suppose, like, rather than, because I remember earlier this year, I've had a bit of a crazy year, but at one point I was thinking, oh, well, because I've got Chiron in the third, one thing I could do is work with people who struggle to read and write and helping them. And I thought that would be a really good thing to do. Unfortunately, I have not had the time. It's my Saturn return. I've been very busy.
No, it's okay. It will come. Just to realize that this is your path. You have time. You're only 30. You have so much time to do it.
But I think, like, that was one thing I was thinking, that's a bit of a bigger project. But actually, I really like what you said, that on a day-to-day basis, for example, for me with Chiron in Leo, there could be something about recognizing others when they're showing up, putting people up on a pedestal and being like, wow, I see you, I see how amazing you are. And same for you, maybe, there might be something about
I might not
recognizing
appreciate other people. No, I'm not, maybe I don't appreciate other people. This is the value and appreciation. In that sense, you bring value to my life, or you bring value. I'm definitely, I'm going to pay more attention on everyday life. You opened my eyes completely today with this talk.
Thank you. Yeah. No, same here. Like, as I'm talking things through, it's definitely making things a bit clearer for me. Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
We'll go through
two more.
We
are now talking. We're talking more than over an hour, but this is so interesting. We can talk all day. Anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, 2 more.
So Chiron in Aquarius. There's definitely themes. See, I have my moon in Aquarius, so I have a lot to say about Aquarius. I think there might be a feeling of always being on the outside, never quite belonging in groups, in
being different.
Being different. Yeah, there might be that kind of, like, no matter what I do, I'm always kind of on the outside. I'm always, just a bit of a weirdo, I guess. Like,
weird. I was gonna say the word weird comes to my mind about feeling weird and not belonging in the community. In that sense, why there's a group of people. Why am I different from them? And I'm supposed to, like, and feel that you are supposed to be like them. That's a thing. That's a problem, because with Chiron, maybe in Aquarius, or I feel that I need to be part of them, but I don't. So what's wrong with me?
Yeah, definitely. Right? And I think there's that detachment, which I suppose if Chiron is in Aquarius, it might exacerbate that to the point where you feel incredibly detached, sometimes almost like a bit dissociative, where you're just like kind of detached from reality almost.
Maybe the way to heal is to accept others in your group, in yours, so you can, I don't know, I'm just thinking now, I'm thinking about Chiron in a totally different way from now on.
Yeah. So maybe it's about, like, how to bring others in, rather than trying to, like, join other groups.
Put yourself in. I'm saying, like, you wanna be part of something. You need to be maybe the leader. See, opposite of Leo, right? To make your own group of the same weirdos. Instead of wanting to be a part of somebody else's group, you be the one who gathers people around you, maybe.
That's a good idea, actually. Maybe if we're looking at the shadows of the sign that Chiron's in, you could look to the strengths of the opposite sign as, like, a way to sort of pull you out of that in a way, as one example.
So many things to think about today. I'm going to be in Chiron.
Chiron on the brain for the rest of the week. Yeah.
No, it's beautiful.
So finally, Chiron in Pisces. I don't know. I think those themes of belief come up again because that's quite Jupiterian. But I would say there's like themes. One. Yeah, it is a hard one. I think that
this is maybe intangible hurt. So I'm thinking this is a wound on a psychological subconscious level, maybe, that we are not even, or it can be that you what you're kind of sacrificing for others, but you expect others to sacrifice for you, and you don't have it. Maybe that's the thing on a
Yes.
tangible level.
Yeah,
You
actually, that's a good shout. Actually, I think maybe a good theme for this could be like being a martyr. So
being
Chiron,
a victim.
yes,
Yeah.
the victim.
Oh,
Yeah, definitely.
this is good. Kind heart healing says, don't have trust that the universe had your back.
I
Mm,
like that.
that's
Yeah, and
a
I
good
think there
one.
could be a sense of on a yeah kind of yeah with Pisces. I often think about it's
Hmm.
that universal. Um, there's almost like a
Yeah,
I often think of more of a religious side of
like when
things that
people say, God, have faith in God, God will help you. And these people might say, what God? God forgotten about me. That, in that sense, if you believe whatever God
yes,
is for you, whatever God is for you. So
I
don't
like
get
that.
me.
It's
Hmm.
like almost like that spiritual. You might feel very disconnected from spirituality and from like that sense of being in the world in a more kind of spiritual sense. Um, yeah, I think that's definitely some of the themes that could come up. Yeah, and I suppose as well we spoke about the 12th house earlier as well that
Yeah.
it's a very foggy, dreamlike place where maybe it's harder to untangle that. Where that wound is, it might be harder for you to see it, or as someone mentioned earlier, it could be that you're hiding it from other people. Yeah, weirdly,
Yeah. Good
I've got
points.
an image because of Pisces. I've literally got like the image of like Jesus with the
Yeah.
wounds in his hands, kind of. Yeah, yeah.
But that's also, how he sacrificed for others. Anyway, I don't want to go into religion, but
No, no, yeah.
just saying,
Don't open that
I
up at the
definitely,
end of our talk. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I don't want to end that way. But think about themes about sacrifice, victims, martyrs, as you said, and
Yeah,
just believe in general. Yeah, yeah,
definitely.
that you are not guided or helped by some divine,
Mm.
some divinity. That's what I would say. Okay, divinity as a general
Yes. Yeah,
term.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Amazing, Tom. This was more than I was expect. I don't even know what I felt. I went through so many emotions in this last
Mm.
hour. I want to thank you so much for your insights and wisdom, and you're such a good path.
Mm.
I can't wait for you to speak in one of the conferences in the future as
Thank you.
a and you should.
Thank you.
With your
I appreciate it.
Chiron in Leo in the third house, I really expect you. I'm encouraging you
Mm.
to think about it, to be a speaker in the conference,
Mm.
or
I'd love to. I'd love to.
yeah,
Yeah.
because this is where I think you're also going to heal that way. And it's my really pleasure and honor to meet you and to have these conversations with you.
Mm.
I
Mm.
just anyway.
And thank you for having me on again. You know, it's the second time here, and both conversations we've had have been lovely.
Yeah, anytime, reach out, please. And thank everybody for joining and for all your great insights as well. I really appreciate this. I truly do appreciate the conversation we have and your insights from everybody who joins.
Yeah, thank you
Um,
everyone for
yeah.
joining and contributing. It's really helpful. Yeah.
Have a great Sunday. Take care.
You too.
Bye. Thank you. Bye
Bye.
bye.